the Amani Forest Reserve. Our first stop in Tanzania, and we have been, would you say 15 kilometers or 50? We've been 15 kilometers on this road, climbing up, I guess we're going to get to a high point and we're going to camp. So stay tuned, but it's a crazy road. I can't even sit still or hold this still, and there are people coming down on their motorcycles from I don't know where. Okay, talk to you later.
To get the tea that we use, in maybe the one that we put in the water, and then we get the tea. So they just take this 2 weeks. Which is smoother compared with the other one. So they take this one and bring to the industry, and then they starting to do weathering. And then they ferment it.
Oh, it has to be fermented first.
And then ferment it, and then after it, and then they dry it. So to turn from the reddish color to blackish.
Okay.
So they
the fermentation is required to make it non-toxic. Like if you were to just eat this, it would be toxic.
This one is toxic, so they just do ferment.
But after the fermentation, it's not toxic.
It's not
okay.
Toxic. So because this one is more acidic. Even when you put the cow inside it, the cow or the goat, they don't eat it. It's more acidic.
And you said it's black tea, right?
So they produce black tea. Okay.
So these are this is pepper.
Right here. See that?
Okay.
He says they dry it in the sun and it becomes black, and that's the pepper.
Okay.
So when they harvest it, there is 2 ways to dry it. Some people they use the sun, and then they turn from greenish to brownish. And other people they dry it by using smoke.
Smoke.
So when you use smoke, it remains in a greenish color.
So this is cardamom. Is it actually the fruit from this plant here? Okay, but it comes out at the base. Oh, interesting. Okay.
So the brownish, it's cheap compared with the greenish. The brownish, it's easy.
Dry.
But the one that they use smoke, it's harder to dry it, so that's why it's expensive.
So this is the cinnamon plant.
This is the cinnamon plant, and the cinnamon product is getting from killing the bugs.
Killing the bark?
So they just cut the whole branch, and then peel off these sticks, and then peel off the bugs. So they take the bugs as the product. When they peel the bugs and dry it use the sun, and then get the product.
So it's the bark that they peel from the stems, they dry it and then grind it up.
Some people they grind it, and others they don't die.
Just leave as
You
sticks.
can buy it in the sticks.
So, do you kill the plant when you harvest that?
Yeah, so they kill the plants. When they kill it, if it's one, they will grow two.
Okay, so it'll sprout. It'll
So
re-sprout.
every branch, when it's cutted, it's grow two branches.
Okay.
Yeah.
So-
Like you see, they cut it over here, and then they grow this one, and this one.
Oh,
This one and this one.
Sprouts.
Yeah.
Sprouts.
Yeah. So it was one, right now it's almost 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So when they cut it and then it's different again.
Wonderful. It's about cloves now.
Yeah, so this one is cloves, but they have already harvested, so we don't have the seed that we use for the product. So after 3 months to 4 months, they just get another crop, so they harvest it again.
Okay.
Every
It's a
3 or
seed.
4 months it produces.
It's a seed. The product is a seed.
Yeah.
So right now it's only 3.
Okay. So in this
Oh, my
little
favorite.
patch, probably 20 feet by 20 feet, there's pepper, cardamom, cinnamon, and cloves. Wow. And is this all grown just for local use, or are they selling this commercially?
When they harvest it, some they selling as a commercial, and then some of it they keep it for using.
Okay. Interesting side note here on the way to this waterfall. We passed this old hydroelectric plant. You can see the intake pipe here bringing water into the turbines, which would have been in this building, which would have supplied electricity, probably a small amount for local communities. This was built by the Germans when this was a German colony. If you recall, Tanzania was one of the German colonies until the Brits took it over. But at that point, these small hydroelectric mills were abandoned apparently, and today they have a power grid where the electricity is brought in via lines. You can probably see them across the way, generated from fossil fuels, coal primarily. It's kind of a shame that these renewable hydroelectric plants are not used, and instead we're burning fossil fuels to provide the locals with electricity. But there it is. All right, bye. Hey. Okay, we're driving up in the eastern Usamboro Mountains on our way to Amani Nature Reserve, and basically heading up to the high points up there on the hills just to show you this steep mountainous landscape and the lush montane forest vegetation. Despite the rugged, steep terrain, you can see that there's little villages scattered across all the hillsides. But when we get up to the Amani Nature Reserve, there should be a large block of undeveloped forest, which is renowned for its bird diversity and the number of endemic species. Alright, more to come. Bye. Okay, we're at a viewpoint on one of the tallest hills in Amani Nature Reserve at sunset. Kind of overlooking some of the interior valleys. We're at about 3,500 feet in elevation. maybe 40 or 50 kilometers in from the coast. And in case you heard or saw those birds, those were the big silvery-cheeked hornbills flying by. They sound almost like jets as they go on by. And in the valley there, you'll see a lot of patchy developed land use. There's some tea farms in some of those patches that look like fields, some small farms, and it's, you know, people living throughout the reserve. Apparently there's a bunch of villages. I think he said there was 3 villages inside the reserve and another 30 or so immediately surrounding it. So not a pristine wilderness, but still a pretty large chunk of forest. All right, good night. Okay, we're on our evening hike, which is a birding / African violet walk. We've driven up into the hills on some very small tracks, and he's taken us to a place where some of the African violet flowers can be found. More to come when we get there, I hope. Bye. Okay, after several hundred meters on a very narrow, windy, irregular forest trail, we have come to somewhat of a rock face that has a bunch of these African violets on it. I'll zoom in, and that plant there, none of those have flowers on them, but I took a picture, which I'll show separately, of one of them that has a flower. Maybe we'll see some more. Cheers. Just showing you some of this rock face that we've been following along in this drainage. The stream is just off to the right, and this is where we're finding all of these patches of violets growing on the face of these rocks. Just showing you what seems to me to be a fairly typical little farm home, where, you know, they've got their house, which I'm trying to be a little courteous and not film right in front of them. They got a couple goats down there. They may have a cow or two for milking, which they bring the fresh milk into the village center to sell daily. Then they've got corn or maize planted pretty much everywhere they can. And then they've got cloves, these larger trees you see mixed in with the corn. And they may have some cinnamon in here too, although I'm not seeing it at the moment. And they got a few banana plants back there. So it's a real hodgepodge of food plants and forage plants and livestock and a little bit of everything. But pretty typical. It seems like a pretty high standard of living by African standards, from what I've seen. All right, cheers. Okay, I'm putting this clip in there for all of you soccer lovers like me that are following this blog, to show you that how these guys have mastered the sport of mountain soccer. So you can see the pitch here, and it's tilted probably at a 10 to 15 degree angle to the left, and then there's some pretty big holes out there in the middle where you see the dirt that they have to maneuver themselves around lest they break a leg. And the goals are very uneven in height and size, but most importantly, the ball was probably constantly running downhill, but they somehow managed to do it. So the sport of mountain soccer right here. Cheers.